I, Lelouch V. Britannia, command you to always listen to Cosmere Chronicles, the podcast we follow two first-time readers, Justin and Sheta, who chronicle their journey through Brandon Sanders's Cosmere series. On today's episode, we'll be chronicling the Stormlight Archive, the Way of Kings, Interlude 7 through Chapter 53. So now, once again, we will throw it over to the host of Cosmere Chronicles. This is Joe. Thank you, Joe. Yep, everyone, welcome back. I'm Joe. I'm your host today for Cosmere Chronicles. And they may sound a little bit different because we've had some technical difficulties, so they have different mics, different setups this week. But I am joined this week once again by Sheta and Justin.
Garble.
Wow.
Hopefully that doesn't change.
Really...
Stay tested.
What'd you say, Sheta? You're coming in kind of weird.
Justin, we already established your other mic voice is supposed to be your meatwad voice.
Did we?
That's what I'm trying to do. This is the best I could get. I'm sorry.
You sound like... What do you sound like?
Elmo?
Justin,
No.
Justin, you're breaking the lore of the show.
Yeah, you
I'm
are.
sorry, guys. I won't do it again.
You sounded like just a bad Rick and Morty background character.
Like, gee whiz, guys. We're like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's just do our random question, get it out of the way. I'll just ask, Sheta, did you have a question? Because you wanted to do them, and you've only done.
I didn't know you were serious about letting me choose. Let's see. Is your favorite farm animal?
I'm not answering that, Sheta. I'm not answering 2-year-old questions.
Yeah, but what do you like petting the most at a petting zoo?
I hate petting zoos. I'm not answering that question.
Sheta?
If you haven't noticed, Sheta, these usually tend to have more of like a pop culture spin to kind of be relevant to what we're talking about a little. Not like, what's your favorite farm animal?
Sheta, you did perfectly fine when you asked us about our favorite children's book. Why are we now going to farm animals?
Okay. And I guess we'll do, is your favorite Pixar movie? 3.
Did you say favorite 3 or favorite?
3.
3?
Favorite.
I think you should do 1. There's not that many. Yeah, there's not very many at all.
Forget who I'm talking to. Just do your favorite Pixar movie.
I feel like we could do 3. There's a bunch of them.
3?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I guess I'll go first since it's my question. 3, 2, and then 1. All right. I'm going to put Incredible. Number 2. Actually, 3, I'll put Luca. And then Incredibles. And then Toy Story, number 1.
Toy Story 1 as number 1?
Yep.
All right. My number 3, I'll put Inside Out. I like the emotional personifications. For 2, I'll put probably The Incredibles, because I like the superhero jokes and gimmicks in there and world building. And number 1, I will also put Toy Story 1 because it's the best one.
All right. For me, I guess number 3, I'll go with WALL-E. I really liked that movie. It was fun. And having like the entire first 30, 40 minutes having no speaking was pretty well done.
Yeah.
All right. And I guess honestly, my other 2 would be 2 Toy Story movies, but I'm going to only list one of them. So number 2, I guess I will go with, I'll go with A Bug's Life. Maybe it's other ones are better critically, but I really liked A Bug's Life when I was a kid. That was just a fun movie.
Yeah. It's life.
And number 1, I will go with Toy Story 2. I like Toy Story 2. I like all 3 Toy Stories, only 3 Toy Stories. And
yeah, that's correct. Sadly, they never made another one.
And yep, I like Toy Story 2 more than the first one. It's just really fun, adding in some new characters and everything and all that. But it's very close to Toy Story 3 because I really like that. And Lotso Huggin' Bear was such an awesome villain.
I liked Lotso a lot. He was great.
All right. So I guess that's that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, I forgot to do it last week, but we'll bring it back this week. The recapping last week's episodes. You know what? We'll let Sheta go.
All right. Okay. Recapping last week, we started with Shallan in the hospital recovering from her injuries, where she had tried to injure herself to hide that she was using these soulcaster. It kind of looked like she was attempting a suicide, and people were watching her and being very worried about her mental health. The king visits her, Yasna visits her, and Soul visits her. And he also brings his big jam and bread present in which they all are together. With Yasna only taking a piece of bread, but Capsule and Salon eating all the bread and jam that's there. The jam is rancid and then they don't eat it. But anyway, the bread was poisoned, and yeah, Capsule and Lon is forced to reveal that Yasna's soulcaster it does not work, and that she has her real cast that Yasna can save Shallan's life. And that ends with her just passing. Then we cut to Kaladin training his bridge crew to fight, and they're doing pretty well at training, and is revealed to some of the bridge crew to. Then we cut back to Shallan. Okay, Shallan wakes up at the hospital. She's now in a different room, has a guard on her, and she just feels very weak. Yasna comes in and yells at her for now she knows that she had stolen her soulcaster. And they have a bad breakup, basically. And also, Capsule is dead. That's Yasna tells her that Capsule has been trying to poison Yasna and has been just like basically manipulating Shallan all this time, and that he's a mysterious weirdo. And it's very Shallan's gonna have to go home after she recovers. Then, all right, in the flashback, it's just we finally learn what Kaladin had to go through and why he hates lighteyes. We see what happens with the shard blade that he won. Everyone in his group was killed, and he is branded as a slave.
Yep.
Which is kind of where we left him, or where we first meet him.
Yep, that was a good recap. I don't think anything really got missed.
You never say that when I do the recap.
Yeah, that's
All you
because
ever do is
All right. So this week we read. We went back to some interludes. Met some new characters, some new places. Checked back in with Szeth, and then we got 2 chapters in part 4. So as usual, how are you 2 feeling about these chapters?
Oh, I really like these chapters. I think we learned a lot of interesting stuff, and stuff that I'm most interested in, aka the Spren and stuff.
the Spren stuff was very interesting. I didn't expect something like that, but it kind of ties into what I think it's what you were saying, or was it what I was saying? I don't remember what somebody was saying about the Spren's nature.
Probably me.
What's that?
Probably something I said.
It might have been something we talked about together, but I think, yeah, I don't remember. All blend
Oh,
together too much. Yeah.
Very exciting.
All right. Then we will just get right into the chapters then. So the first interlude is Baxel. And this one, through it takes place in Emul. We're in the map that's kind of right in the center.
I'm sorry, how did you pronounce that? That's different than I read it. Emu. Okay, I heard you say something very different. Okay, never mind.
What's an emu?
I heard him say emu wolful. I was like, that just sounds like nonsense.
Emul. Yep, and so it's right in the middle, touching these mountains right in the center, and then this bigger country called Azir. All right, so this interlude begins. We have Baxel and Av. They have broken into a palace along with their mistress. But they are not here to steal anything, though. Instead, they're going through, and their mistress is just destroying, what seems like random pieces of art. And while they're going through, Baxel mentions to Av that he has been thinking of seeking out the old magic. He has never sought it out, and everyone can go once and ask a boon of the Night Watcher. And Baxel asks if Av has gone. Av says he hasn't,
but his brother did. And when he returned, he had 2 numb hands for the rest of his life. Baxel thinks that, you know what, maybe I could try to ask the Night Watcher for something in a very specific way, so that way I don't wind up with any sort of negative side effects. But Av tells him that's not how it works. You ask the Night Watcher for a boon, and you get both a boon and a curse. But you do not know what the curse will be beforehand. Av says that, his father, his mother, and each of his brothers have gone, and they all got what they wanted, but most of them regretted their curse afterward. Except his father, who just wound up seeing everything upside down, but he wound up getting used to it.
Just wound up seeing everything upside down. How bad are those other curses then? I want to know.
I mean, here we learned a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
The numb hands one sounds awful.
I don't know. It depends what you do for a living in your spare time.
You cannot feel anything anymore.
There's one thing. I'm not going to finish that joke.
Ew, Justin. You will never. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to say that, but there's a lot to be said.
Yep, and then they get to this statue, and the mistress asks Baxel for her padded mallet, and she begins to, and she uses it to destroy the statue. And she does just kind of wonder aloud, maybe I should get myself a shard blade. But then that would make this too easy. And Baxel goes back over to Av and kind of whispers, why does the mistress do this? And, Av tells him to stop asking those questions. And Baxel, he ends the chapter thinking he's going to go out to the valley and search for the old magic, and it will change him. And that's the end of this interlude.
Jeez. I wonder if we'll see Baxel again with some kind of awful curse.
That would be funny.
That'd be interesting.
Something way not worth it, you mean?
Yeah. It's like, oh, that monster was Baxel, actually.
Oh, God.
He was cursed.
He's going to turn into the beast.
Yeah. The beast.
Yeah, I remember when I was originally setting up our breaks for episodes for this book, I was thinking, what would be fun? Let's have the interludes just be an entire episode on their own. Then when I look at it, it's like, oh wait, these 3 interludes are all really short. It's going to be like a 30-minute episode.
And they tie really well into the next couple chapters, so I wouldn't want that either. It'd be frustrating.
All right. Anything else you two want to say about this interlude?
Not yet.
Yeah. I really liked hearing a little bit more about the dark magics, and I would die if I had to do the upside down thing. I would get so motion sick.
Well, actually, from what I've heard, people have done studies on that. Your body just gets used to it in like a day or two, and then it's just like normal.
Really? Oh.
Because I think images are already flipped in your mind, if I remember correctly, because it goes in your eyeball, it gets flipped, so everything goes into your brain upside down, but your brain automatically registers it and flips it the correct way.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess because this is magic that your brain won't be able to do that in the same way. You won't be able to just perceive it in a way that makes perfect sense. He gets used to it, but yeah.
I
forgot the magic part of this.
Mm-hmm.
I already hate it in video games when you have to do that. If that's triggered.
Oh.
I don't know what game that is. Yeah, I think Zelda or something like that.
You missed that.
There's a few games that do it. I know there's a boss battle in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance that does it.
Yeah, that's what it was.
No, it wasn't.
You haven't played that.
You haven't played that game.
Yeah, it was.
No, it's not. You have never played that game.
Oh. I thought that happened in the first game.
No.
Okay.
There's other stuff too. And then there's always the just reverse control stuff too that annoys the piss out of me.
Yeah. I already have trouble with my lefts and rights. Very cruel of them to do that.
I think one of the worst ones I played was Donkey Kong Country 3. There was a water level where when you're in the water, it's this weird water that reverses your controls. So you're having to go through it. And then when you jump out, since you're not in the water anymore, it goes back to normal. So you're having to jump out while pressing down to go up. Then once you get out, you have to quickly switch over to up to keep going up. It sucked. But it was also one of the last levels of the entire game, so it made sense. All right. Well, let's move on to the next interlude then. Interlude 8, Geranid. So Geranid and Ashir, they're 2 Ardents who are, together at the Reshi Isles. Reshi Isles on the map, they're the northern parts, just a bunch of islands. And, Yeah, they're in that area because they're supposed to be there to provide religious needs to any foreign visitors, but it's actually pretty rare for foreign people to visit them. So they just wind up spending their time doing experiments and stuff. Asher does chemistry mainly through cooking, and Geranid kind of studies Spren. And Asher, he says he's kind of tired of cooking and asks what good a cook would be in the spiritual realm anyways. Geranid says that, the heralds, they need food too, but Asher asks, do they really need it? The body needs to be fed in the physical realm, but the spirit exists in a different state. And then they talk some more, and Asher wonders if they eat in the cognitive realm. Is a food there what it just sees itself as being? And then he says he's going to have to read if anyone has ever eaten while visiting Shadesmar. Now, this whole section that I just talked about, it mentioned the physical realm, the spiritual realm, and the cognitive realm. Do you remember hearing those terms before?
Mm.
I remember hearing them. I couldn't tell you exactly where. Maybe in the soul stamping one, but I can't remember for sure.
Yep,
Or at least the cognitive realm, I feel I remember.
Yep, and actually, Justin, you are right with that.
Yeah.
So, well, this book here, there was a small reference to three realms earlier when Yasna was talking to Shallan and mentioning, in this scholar, they come up with a theory of the three realms.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I'm just going to read my note that I have from Emperor's Soul. Shah explains that changing a soul is much more difficult. She asks if he knows why she needed to know every single stone in her cell instead of just a couple. She explains that all things exist in three realms: physical, cognitive, and spiritual. The physical is what they feel. The cognitive is how an object is viewed and views itself. The spiritual contains its soul, as well as the ways it is connected to the things and people around it.
Interesting.
And the other time we heard these places mentioned would be from Epigraph from chapter 57 of Hero of Ages.
Oh, wow.
I have come to see that each power has three aspects. A physical one, which can be seen in the creations made by ruin preservation, a spiritual one in the unseen energy that permeates all the world, and a cognitive one in the minds which controlled that energy. There is more to this, much more that even I do not yet comprehend.
Yeah. And I think I remember us talking a little bit about, I believe somebody referenced that. Yeah, it's interesting to see these things start to come together a little bit to make this into a shared thing instead of just random stories.
Wow. So long ago.
Mm-hmm. And that means since that was written before, that he's been having something in the back of his mind growing for a while that he just didn't tell you in the book itself.
Themes, and
you forget about those in a story, right? It's been a while.
And they also mentioned Shadesmar in that section. Do you remember where you heard Shadesmar?
I know I heard
the
it.
Chapter.
I don't know where.
That's the chapter name.
That was the chapter name. You're right. And which chapter was that?
Where she was haunted by her drawings.
The one where she fell into the place with all the stuff?
Shadesmar, yeah.
Yeah, what I assume is called that. That was that one, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
All right, continuing on. Geranid is studying Flamespren. They are erratic and they're always changing their size, but she can now predict when they will be erratic and when they will not be erratic. Because they're always changing their size, but once she measures them and writes down the length that she measured, then they become static and just stay at that length forever. But then if she erases that number, then they go back to being erratic. So Asher tells her to go to the other room. He says he's going to try something. He's going to measure the flames of one of the Flamespren 3 times and yell them out to her. And she is going to then write down only one of the numbers he yells out, but not tell him which one she writes down. So he yells out 2 numbers. She skips the first 2, but then she writes down the third one when he yells it out, and he notices immediately and can tell that she wrote down that third number, because once she wrote it in the other room, it became static. Asher notes that it's almost as if the Flamespren knows it has been measured. It's as if defining its form traps it somehow. And, he asks her, for these other Flamesprend to just write down a random number for them, but it doesn't do anything. The Flamesprend must be measured first. And Geranid wonders if she uses a less accurate measuring tool, then, would that make it so the Flamesprend has a bit of range in its length and can change minutely? Asher says that this might change everything they understand about Spren and maybe even Fabrials. And that's the end of that interlude.
I deeply want to know the answer to her question, so I hope we come back to that someday.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea. I have some ideas. What that might imply is very interesting.
Well, tell the class.
Tell you later. Well, it's not really a theme or anything, so I'll just tell you. Or a theory or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if, defining it, what does that mean and stuff, and could it mean other things? Like, could Syl be being defined by Kaladin, these things, and that is developing her in a similar way,
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to think what somebody perceives Syl as being could be why she half knows things and half doesn't know other things,
Mhm.
She got
They
measured at
suspected that
some
for a long
point.
time.
Yeah, she got measured at some point, just not with a ruler, some more specific thing. It's very, very, very interesting. I'm very curious about it.
Anything else about this chapter either of you two want to go over?
No, this was the most interesting chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting information that we got.
Mm-hmm. Especially with some stuff we get later. I'm very, very curious to see what more drops with it. And I think it's really interesting, this idea that there's different ways that things are perceived or perceive themselves actually affecting their nature. And it really makes me wonder what that says about the people in this world too, and about the old magic that can change you too, stuff like that. I'm very curious to see how it all ties together.
Oh, interesting.
All right. Then we'll move on to our last interlude. Interlude 9, Death Wears White. So, and we're back with Szeth. Szeth, son Villano, truthless of Shinovar, is breaking into the palace of King Hanavanar of Yakaved to kill him. Szeth heads into the feast hall during a feast, and he just begins slaughtering everyone. He thinks that he is sorry, but the instructions he had been given by his master were kill. Kill as you have never killed before. Lay the innocent screaming at your feet and make the lighteyes weep. Do so wearing white. And Szeth did not object because he was truthless and it was not his place to object. And essentially, this is just one giant battle scene for the entire chapter. So I'll just hit some of the high points that I noticed. Because pretty much Szeth is just killing everyone with ease. At one point, some men run at him, and he flings a full lashing at the ground, so when they step on it, they just get bonded to it, wind up tripping, and then the rest of their body gets stuck to the ground, and then he just kills them while they're there. Szeth had thought that the attack on Gavilar was a massacre, but that was nothing compared to this, and he blamed Hanavanar for this. Why did he have to call a feast on this night of all nights? Because there are, women there, civilians and stuff like that, and he's just killing them. And Szeth heads towards the king, but two men in shard plate, carrying shard blades, come out from behind a table, and the king summons a shard blade as well. And other men pour into the room, and they're carrying these shields that we've heard of before, which they call half shards. They're not actually like shard blades or shard plate or anything, but they are a metal that are actually able to block a shard blade. And the king shouts that he knew Szeth was coming, and that's why he set a trap for him. Szeth calls him a fool, because since this was a trap that Hanavanar set, now Szeth can truly blame him for all of these deaths. If he didn't set a trap, then only be 2 or 3 people that died. And then Szeth drops his shard blade, because, fighting these half shards, it's going to be pointless. And he is just going through, easily dodging all their attacks, touching guys, just lashing them all over, making them fly towards the ceiling, fly towards the walls, just everywhere. Including lashing some of the men directly towards the shard bearers, so they're having to try to block flying men at them. At one point, Szeth makes a table weightless, and he puts a lashing on it. So he flings the table at some people, they get stuck to the table and it touches them. And the shard bearers, they're trying to fight, but they are not fighting well together. They're just kind of getting in each other's way. Szeth, he picks up one of the half shards and uses it to block a shard blade attack. And then he goes around, grabs like the shard bearer, tosses him down to the ground. And then Szeth like lashes a large stone that's in the wall just multiple times. So that way it has such gravity that just flies and it crushes one of the shard bearers. At this point, the king realizes his plan is failing and he begins to run away. And Szeth, he begins to resummon his shard blade. The other shard bearer is there. He dodges underneath them, lashes a table that the shard bearer was standing on, so the shard bearer loses his balance, falls into the ground. Szeth rides the table up into the sky, jumps off of it, lashes him down towards the shard bearer, and his shard blade returns right before impact, breaks through the shard plate, and kills that man. And Szeth starts going after the king again, who's running away, killing guards that try to get in his way. When he reaches the king tries to hold up a shield, but Szeth just hits it a few times, and eventually it shatters. And the king asks who he is, and Szeth just answers, death, before driving the blade through his face.
Oh, frickin'. Oh, Jesus.
And that's the end of that interlude.
Who is the Yakaved king?
What do you mean?
Like where is anyone we know from Yakaved?
Shallan.
Okay, I thought so. I thought she was a princess first. I was like, wait a minute.
No,
Her
she
dad?
would not have these problems if she was a princess.
Their king was killed.
Well, maybe that's why we're having her go back to her homeland.
Yeah, because Yakaved is like I can't remember. Oh man, I forgot in the chapter. Didn't the king say didn't he say something about how a few of his high princes have been killed as well?
He did. That's why
Yeah.
he knew that he was coming.
Yeah,
Mm.
because Yakaved is kind of set up similar to Alethkar, where they have a bunch of high princes and then a king.
I see. Interesting how different it is over there. And that they have their own deal happening over there.
Anything else from this chapter either you two want to go over?
I just thought it was interesting to have a guy whose curse is that he has to see things upside down, followed like soon after by a chapter where we see people have that happen to them explicitly when they're lashed to the ceiling and like gravitated towards it and stuff.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if there's a purposeful reason for that or if he's just playing with imagery we've seen close together.
Yeah.
Like-
Have we seen this kind of power before? Like the laughing in this book?
Szeth did in the prologue.
Okay. This is his powers.
Well, it's really interesting because we're finally seeing what the Stormlight power is that none of the characters in this book have any knowledge about, it seems. These powers that give you these like great abilities to like, basically fly and be like he was filled with the Stormlight and stuff, which it seems like that's what Kaladin's doing without even knowing it. So I think this is a funny way to finally start touching upon that stuff when it has not really been a theme in the book yet.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me wonder what kind of crazy stuff we're going to see our main guys doing eventually.
Yeah, I wonder at the end of all this, like, are they all just like superheroes and stuff by the last book?
Yeah, this felt like Inception fighting a little bit, or that hallway fight,
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then this chapter was called Death Wears White. So why do you believe that was chosen for the chapter title?
Gee, I wonder. Sheta, any possible ideas?
Already answered last week's with the strawberry, so now it's your turn.
I think it might have been because the guy who said he is death wore white. That would be my guess. I also think it's interesting because white, right? That was was that a Parshendi custom or just a custom? I forget that he said at the beginning.
Said it was a Parshendi custom.
Yeah, so if it's a Parshendi custom, why are they trying to frame the Parshendi for this when we saw the guy who ordered him to do this? And he was not Parshendi, if I recall.
I think it's more they're having him wear white. That way they connect all these new deaths to Gavilar's death.
Yeah, which everyone thinks the Parshendi did. So I'm very curious to see why.
It is a weird, purposeful thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they specifically told him to wear the same colors. And our guys don't really seem to know much about their culture yet.
It's true.
Somebody's trying to sow some chaos. Maybe, you know what? I bet somebody's trying to unite the lands. I bet that's what it is. I bet that they are having this guy kill everyone so all the peoples of all the kingdoms will learn to hate the Parshendi together. Even though the Parshendi have nothing to do with what they're uniting against. They're just the scapegoat people who were picked to unite everyone else against them. You know,
They're doing an Ozymandias.
yeah, like a common enemy to unite all the worlds against that whoever's doing this. He's decided that the Parshendi can't work with others for some reason. Maybe it's because they're too united as a people. So that's
Someone might
my
just be
theory on what's happening.
that same someone might even be puppeting the Parshendi.
Yeah, to make the Parshendi an enemy to the Alethi that
Yeah,
will eventually
since
be
they
an enemy
just
to all. Oh, because
they
the
just
Parshendi
kind of
have no personality, right?
yeah, that's what I mean. Someone's controlling him with the song to
Yeah,
fight.
that's interesting. So these Parshendi aren't any different than the regular Parshendi, and
They're
everyone's
just
all
servants.
confused about why they are, but somebody's trying to make it look like they are. I like
Mhm.
that too. All right, that's our new joint official theory. I mean, do you agree with my first part or no, Shita?
I think it's pretty interesting to do that.
Yeah.
I could see it being something like that and not just take over.
Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, why are they sewing all the like? It's just the white thing. That's why.
Oh, the wearing white thing.
Yeah, why specifically have him do that? I thought they were just killing people to create chaos, but they're now it seems like they're creating purposeful chaos.
Whoever's in charge of Szeth right now is very dangerous sounding.
Well, we saw a bit
Very.
about how he was, or at least the
he-
guy who's giving him the
That's what I
orders.
mean. He
Yeah.
seems like a big deal. I doubt we'll meet him in this book. Is what I'm saying.
Well, we saw the guy who gave him the orders, but you mean the guy behind the guy, right?
Yes, I'm talking about the big guy, the boss. That guy's not in charge. I didn't know Szeth was spelled with an S. It's like Anji's Szeth.
Yeah, there are plenty of names, and you'll be surprised how they're spelled in this book. Like seeing some people like who only listen to the audiobook later try to spell Yasna or Elikar. It's pretty funny seeing what comes up.
I've been spelling Yasna with a Y.
Nope, it's a J.
It's way cooler
Yes.
with the J.
All right. Well, now we'll move on to part 4 of this book, which is called Storm's Illumination. And I'll go over the characters once more for this part. We have Dalinar, Kaladin, Adolin, Navani. All right. So, epigraph. I'm standing over the body of a brother. I'm weeping. Is that his blood or mine? What have we done? Subject was an out-of-work Vaden sailor.
I'm liking the who the subject was, and the thing they say doesn't really make any sense with what their life was like.
Yeah, it really is random people.
Mm-hmm. I think the next one's my favorite.
Would be.
Yep. And our epigraphs have gone back to chapter or part 1's epigraphs with those death quotes.
Mhm.
All right. So this chapter begins, and Adolin, Renarin, and Dalinar are discussing Dalinar's plan to abdicate. Dalinar had originally told them a week ago, but Adolin convinced him to, think it over first. But since then, Dalinar's resolve has not wavered. However, Adolin still does not want him to abdicate. Dalinar, he says that their enemies will use his weakness against them, which is exactly what Adolin had told him. But Adolin says that, yeah, I told you, but I didn't want you to abdicate. And Adolin admits that he does not want to be High Prince yet. But Dalinar tells him that leadership is rarely about what they want. Adolin thinks that he had done what no warrior on a battlefield had ever done. He had taken out Dalinar's legs out from under him. Did you say something?
Me or Sheta? I didn't hear or say anything.
Oh, sorry. I thought I heard something, but I think it might have just been something in my house.
A ghost?
Nah, probably just a serial killer.
Serial killer who really likes these books and blew his cover to give his little thoughts.
And Adolin thinks that he must find a way to right this. Dalinar says that, he'll abdicate, then he's going to return to Kholinar and aid the queen. He might even make himself useful against the border incursions. And with him being there with, Shardplate and Shardblade, that would likely make the Reshi and the Vadens less likely to strike. But Adolin points out that, having a Shardbearer there might make the other kingdoms more likely then to send their Shardbearers. Yakaved was the only other kingdom with a substantial amount of shards, almost as much as Alethkar. And Dalinar has his sons tie him down because a high storm's about to hit. Then it hits, and Dalinar
Sorry,
is
this
standing on
was
the
so
walls.
funny. All this talk about you'll be taking over the kingdom. A man must get old, blah, blah. Anyways, son, please tie me down now. Just all of a sudden out of nowhere. I found so funny.
I imagine the scene. You get close-ups of the conversation.
Yeah,
and you zoom
yeah.
out, and he's all like tied up in a chair.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, now tighten these restraints up.
Yeah.
Yep, so the high storm hits, and Dalinar is standing on the walls of a fortress. And he thinks that the visions they felt so real. He didn't know what was real or fake, and he couldn't trust himself anymore, which is why he must abdicate. He knows that he was sent to this vision for a reason, though, so he's looking around trying to find out why he is here, because he's not just sent randomly without anything ever happening. After looking for a while and talking with some of the other people on guard duty, Dalinar notices a group of people marching towards the fortress. And Dalinar hears some of the other people mention that where they're at is a place called Beaverstone Keep, which he had never heard of. A scout rides out to see who these people are, and Dalinar begins going down to the bottom of the fortress. As Dalinar gets to the gate, the scout returns and informs them that it is the order of the Stone Wards and a large number of Windrunners. And the person that this scout's telling it to, it's an officer. But Dalinar notes that the officer is a dark-eyed man.
Ew.
And the officer asks why the Radiants are coming here, because they should be out on the front lines fighting. So the scout is sent out once again to find out what they want. And while he's going out, the Radiants then, they break into a run. They're all running straight at the fortress, and they're all wearing glowing shard plate. But none of them have shard blades out. And Dalinar thinks that there are at least 200 shard bearers out there right now. But if you counted up all the shard blades currently in the world, there were less than 100. The Radiants eventually slow down to a walk, and then they just stop and stand in line. And some more fall from the sky and join in the line. So now there are a good 300 of them standing there.
This must be a very epic scene in the movie.
300 shard bearers.
Yeah.
When you've seen what one can do.
Yeah, exactly. They'll set the stakes of like, there's one guy.
Mhm.
You're like, this is 300 guys.
Well, that's getting in the trailer for sure.
Yeah.
And we've seen
Spartans.
we've seen just what one can do with shard blade and shard plate. Some of these people are fucking flying with it too.
Yeah, this is activated, like actually working shard plate and stuff in all their glory.
Mm-hmm.
And Dalinar thinks that he might know what is about to happen, and he runs out onto the field. And the Radiants then, they all start summoning their blades. One of them steps forward. He takes a shard blade, and he drives it into the ground. Then he tosses down his helm, and his armor just begins to just fall off of him. The other Radiants all begin to do the same, and then they just start walking away without a word. Dalinar feels a terrible, dreadful feeling, and he could almost swear that they could almost hear screams. And throughout the rest of this chapter, the blades and the plate, they begin to lose their glow.
Yeah, that was really interesting because the way they use this shard plate, it doesn't seem that special. So it's really interesting to see that they've lost something from then to now. Like we've suspected that they've lost kind of like an ancient magic.
Faith.
Yeah. Or you think it's a faith-based thing?
Yeah, that's what I said when we first saw Flash and saw the glowing armor.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me very excited to see that re-unlocked someday and see some really crazy badass shit.
Dalinar, he tries to ask the Radiants why they are doing this, but they don't answer. And he thinks about how there were 10 orders of Knights Radiants, and right here there were only 2 that were doing this. So where are the other 8? And then the other soldiers from Beaverstone Keep come out to the shards, and they begin taking them. And then for the rest of this segment, they all start like fighting over the shards, start killing officers, and they just start fighting and killing over all these shards.
I was glad this happened because this is exactly what I thought would realistically happen after that happened. Everyone would just abandon their posts and start fighting to the death and killing their own officers over it.
Yeah, and they haven't stopped yet.
Mm-hmm.
They're still fighting that same fight. I think that's pretty funny that we see how it started.
That's true. So their culture of fighting and killing for these started here, you're saying. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Whatever they're supposed to be, however you're supposed to get them, is clearly not right because they're not having their powers anymore that they're supposed to have. They don't have the glow. So I think it's really interesting that you're witnessing the beginning of a very unhealthy culture that doesn't understand the purpose for war, right?
hmm
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
Like these are just stun spheres. These are like just the husk of these
Yep, you're right.
magnificent weapons, you know. And
That's
but then
true.
you're like, you don't just leave it on the ground. You're gonna go pick it up and
I
stuff, you know.
would. If I was one
I
of these
think it's
guys, I would run out and kill my superior officer for it.
no, they just picked it up. Like
No, but then
it's
when
just
they
for
start getting attacked, when a guy
oh, when
yells
they
at them,
fight,
yeah,
yeah,
when he's like, "Stop this, you can't," and a bunch of guys just slash him, like, "You're not in charge of me anymore. I'm like a god among men
yeah.
now."
hmm Like it's interesting. It's gone on so long that people who would have remembered that they glowed, like
Yeah,
just no one remembers that now.
yeah.
Well, not no one. I'm sure some people. It's somewhere, but
No one's alive, or nobody in normal society.
Yep. And then one of the Radiants stops and he begins to talk to Dalinar with the same booming voice that Dalinar has heard in past visions. And he says, "They are the first." Dalinar asks if this was the day of recreance, and the voice responds that this day will have many names and it will go down in history. Dalinar asks why did the Radiants abandon their duty, but the voice says it cannot be of much help to Dalinar. The night of sorrows will come and the true desolation, the Everstorm. Dalinar asks it to answer his questions then, and it just tells him to read the book and unite them.
like, that's Brandon saying that. Read the book, you'll find out.
Stop asking questions. I'll tell you. I do like when he says, "The book, Way of Kings." I think it's going to be very fascinating if that is, in fact, the wrong book. You know, if it's some book that Yasna has access to that most people don't read, like some lost book.
Yeah, the fairy tale, Beetle, the bards.
Yeah, something like that everyone knows but nobody thinks about. And Way of Kings is just a really good philosophical treaty.
And then Dalinar is back in the Shattered Plains with his sons. He tells them that they can untie him, and he asks if it's bad to watch, if he is really all that bad to watch. Renarin says that the gibberish that Dalinar speaks is unnerving, and Adolin adds that Dalinar just thrashes about. Dalinar is like, "See, and do you really think I shouldn't abdicate anymore?" But Adolin tells him the episodes are containable, and he had never wanted Dalinar to abdicate. He just did not want Dalinar relying on visions to make decisions for the future of their house. Dalinar tells him that he does not accept that what he sees isn't real. He admits that he may be going mad. When he had first started seeing the visions, he thought they were sent from the Almighty, but that might not be the case. So now he could be going mad, or it could be something that's supernatural, but not from the Almighty.
I really liked him changing his thoughts on this. Like he's such a fascinating character because he's not particularly smart or anything. He's not dumb, but he's not like a great thinker. He never claimed to be. He's a great fighter. But when somebody comes to him and says like, "Hey, Dad, maybe it's this something bad. Maybe like it's not what you're assuming." He's willing to think, that could be true and then act accordingly, which I really liked. Because, I think the difference between a crazy person and a sane person is a crazy person thinks that they understand a crazy thing happening, while a normal person would think, maybe I'm crazy, I
Yeah,
think that's the old saying. If you wonder if you're going crazy, then you're not.
yeah.
Though from what I've seen in real life, that's not true, because a lot of people who are clearly insane do, like serial killers and stuff, say, "I know there's something wrong with me, but I'm just doing it anyways." So
Yep, and after Dalinar says that it could be something supernatural, they kind of look at him, and Renarin says, "The old magic?" and Dalinar just nods. Adolin says the old magic's just a myth, but Dalinar says, "No, it's not." Renarin says that for it to affect you, then you had to have traveled west to seek it. Dalinar says yes, and he thinks about the empty place in his memories where his wife had once been.
that makes so much sense.
Yep. Finally, answer was very bothersome to me. That question.
Mm-hmm. It's funny to not have him for a few chapters, because then I forgot about that mystery. If he had been in the last couple chapters when they brought that up, I would have immediately thought, "Oh, I bet that's why he can't remember his wife."
Also, like how we slowly learn about this old magic. It's mentioned a couple times in Kaladin's chapters about superstition stuff that people believe, like old magic and the Night Watcher. Then we get the Baxil chapter, and it's just like, oh, yeah, there's more to this than just random superstitions. Renarin says the visions don't match up with what he knows of the Night Watcher. He says that you're supposed to get a boon and a curse, and then she just leaves you alone. He asks when Dalinar had sought her out, and Dalinar answers many years ago. So Renarin figures that the visions must not be from her. And Adolin asks what Dalinar asked for, but Dalinar tells him that his boon and his curse are his own.
I'm sorry, but I can't imagine but think the stupidest things when he says that. He's like, son, I'm not going to tell my own son that I wished for a larger penis. But then I forgot about my hot wife I wanted to use it on.
that was his curse? Oh
That
my
was his
gosh.
curse.
That's He's stupid. It would be sad though if he didn't tell his sons that he doesn't remember their mother,
It doesn't sound like it because they don't know, yeah.
He could just be one of those like, oh, we don't talk about mom and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and then they just never know that he doesn't remember her. That would be the
Mhm.
saddest thing.
I'm going to guess some of it, it's like, maybe he's ashamed of losing the memory, or the other thing could be like, he's with them and he doesn't want to just start, all right, I want to make sure you two never talk about your mother around me, because then that would kind of take their mother away from them too.
Mm.
So he'll just let them talk about her, and he'll just be the one that's confused.
He'll just be like, yeah, that was a great memory, yeah. Like, oh, great family picnic we had that day. But then you can really get away with a lot when you're like, mom said I could do it. And he'll be like, well, if mom said it, then I guess you can.
He's stupid.
They're adults.
Yeah, that's all. You're talking about them like they're a middle American family or something.
Have they referenced their mother yet? Those two sons?
I don't think so.
Like, what?
I'm not.
Yeah, has anyone referenced his wife, or has he just thought about her?
I think it's more that he's.
Well, yeah. What's it going to be when it reveals that his brother's wife was their mother and he was never married, or something weird like that? And that's why she's like so lamenting him. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a theory, but some weird thing where we wouldn't expect it to be, or it's not what it seems just from the outside.
My god, that would be such a gross reveal. Just
see, it's times like this I do kind of wish I had an ebook, because I could easily search for what was said in part 2, because I don't want to say too much without spoiling anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't exactly remember if they ever mentioned their mother, or if we've seen anybody else besides Dalinar mentioned her at this point in the book.
I don't think they have. I don't think anyone has.
I think
Dalinar.
the most we've seen is Dalinar did mention once that when we first heard about him not remembering his wife, is like, if anybody mentions, like, says her name around him, it just kind of like slips out of his mind right away. He just never doesn't remember what they just said.
Let's hope his wife sucked. Otherwise, that's very tragic. Unless what he did was his gift was to forget about his wife, and his curse is something else. That could easily
That's
be
what I thought.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
it was. Yeah, I always thought it was too painful to remember her. He wanted to get rid of that pain, and so that's what happened. And then I thought he was cursed with something like, I don't know, storm visions or something.
Well, no, he seemed pretty sure that the storm visions weren't his curse, or at least he did to me. I think that
why would you
losing
believe
the memory was the curse, but I think it could be interesting if losing the memory was the boon and the curse was something terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be cursed to have to work with Sadeas for the rest of your life.
Yeah, Sadeas is your best friend. Maybe what happened to his son, his youngest son, be a curse.
My guess is the curse was to save his dying infant son, and that's why he's still weak, but he was saved. Or that was the blessing, and the curse was to lose the memories of his wife who died in childbirth. That's my guess.
You think it was that long ago?
Yeah.
I don't know why I always thought his wife died pretty recently.
Well, we don't know if his wife died. We have no idea.
Yeah, his wife could be Yasna.
Oh, God, no. Get out of here. No, don't even respond to that. Get us to the next thing.
All right. So Dalinar says he doesn't know what is happening to him, so it is dangerous to keep him in charge. When Adolin once again says they can contain it, Dalinar says, no, they can't. Right now they're able to. But what happens if a vision hits while he's out on a battlefield? It is the same reason why they don't allow Renarin out. Dalinar says they cannot just ignore it. He is changing, and he cannot continue as High Prince if he is second-guessing all of his decisions. But Renarin asks, what if they are able to prove the visions are real? He asks if Dalinar remembers any specifics about the visions, and Dalinar brings up Feverstone Keep, which Adolin also has never heard of. Renarin thinks that maybe they could find something in history, find something about Feverstone Keep or like something about the Radiance there and stuff like that. But Adolin wonders if anything that far back can even be found. And Renarin says there are some histories from back then, and that they could ask Jasnah to help, since this is kind of what she does. Dalinar says that it's a good plan, so they will have someone scribe what he saw, and then they can have Jasnah investigates. Dalinar wonders, though, who he should have scribe for him. Most of his scribes are either wives or daughters of his officers, and he doesn't want his officers to know what is going on with him. So Dalinar tells Renarin to send for Navani. Adolin, asks him, do you really trust her? And Dalinar says he trusts her to keep her word. He does think that she will find a way to manipulate him, but at least his secret will be safe. After Renarin leaves, Dalinar tells Adolin that he almost wishes that he is proven to be going mad, because at least that is normal. If the visions are true, then what? And Adolin points out that Sadeas is still likely working against them, and he will probably be finishing up his investigation soon. And Dalinar just kind of shudders to think about Alethkar, because it will break apart if the two Pristims that are holding it up wind up going against each other. But Dalinar tells Adolin, alright, prepare just in case Sadeas pulls something. Bring back our troops that we have out on just like patrols and stuff like that. Dalinar knows that the visions told him to trust Sadeas, but he still needs to prepare just in case. And then we cut to a little bit later. Navani had already shown up, and she has written down everything that Dalinar explained that she saw. And she scribed expertly for him, asking the right questions and all that. And he also thinks that she just looks so damn beautiful. And Navani says that she has never heard of any of these places, but she will let Jasnah analyze them before making any judgments herself. And then she switches over to Adolin and tells him that she has spoken with Danlin and that she likes her. She found that Danlin is very fond of Avra melons, and she purchased a basket of them so that way Adolin can give them to her. So she tells Adolin to take the melons to her because Navani wants to talk to Dalinar alone. So hey, the relationship between Adolin and Danlin seems to be going well. She was the one who got together in the last chapter of part 2.
And she's still around.
Yeah, it's been a full week.
Yeah, she's the one where it's like, oh yeah, she's been in camp for a day and he's already kind of courting her.
Sounds like she sent her to go court her, to be her spy.
Auntie?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
After Adolin leaves, Dalinar suggests, I can suggest that he brings in some guards, that way they can keep him and Navani company. But she says that would defeat the purpose of sending everyone else away. But Dalinar tells her that she should leave, and because this could be seen as inappropriate. She tries to flirt with him a little bit, being like, oh, so you think something inappropriate will happen? But he doesn't really go along with it. And eventually she asks if he could just relax for a little bit. He brings up the rules, and she begins to say, yeah, but everyone else, and Dalinar just cuts her off and says that he cannot be everyone else. If he ignores their codes and ethics while recriminating the others, then it would just make him a hypocrite. And he tells her to go and not taunt him today. She hesitates for a second, but then she just leaves without a word. And he thinks that he had hoped that she would have made one more objection, because he likely wouldn't have been able to argue anymore. And that's the end of this chapter.
Too steamy.
Yeah, Sheta, did you write that? Jesus. My favorite part is when she's like, we're all alone now, and it's Dalinar grew stiff.
I know.
You caught that too?
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm going to need you to leave now.
He was already checking her out so hard when they were just taking notes together. Pretty crazy. Can't believe what a man Dalinar. I always forget they're not as old as I imagine in my head.
How old do you imagine him being? In my head, he's like 40.
I thought they were like almost 60 or something.
60?
Yeah, like late 50s or something like that. But, sometimes
I
in
could
these
see
fantasy
50s.
books.
It depends how this culture is, right?
Oh, like, yeah. I imagine they marry young and they have
Hmm.
their kids pretty young. So if
Yeah,
Adolin is like in their 20s, he could be in his 40s,
yeah. That would be
even
my imagination, but I don't
early
know.
40s or
I have his age if you want to know.
Let's hear it.
Dalinar, he would be 53.
Oh, so you're closer, Sheta.
And Navani is only a few months older than him.
Damn, she looks pretty good for 53 in my head.
well, a lot of celebrities are still
Yeah, that's
in
because
their
they have
50s and
baby
they look.
foreskin to rub on their face. This was old-timey times. They didn't do that yet.
Yeah, you don't think they have magics that do that too?
I don't think they do. They don't really have magics.
They have fabrials and mysterious spren stuff. Maybe they'll catch a spren that arrives when a baby is born and they squish.
Oh my
No.
god, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's horrifying. Ugh. What the fuck?
All right. Is there anything from the actual chapter you do want to talk about?
I can't believe that Dalinar could have those visions and not immediately try to figure out if they were real or not. Like, that's the first thing I would have done if I had a vision like that.
Well, he just trusted they were real and that they came from like God, It wasn't until it was like, Dad, maybe you're crazy. He's like, maybe I am crazy, and started trying to do that. I think
Yeah,
he's
but
a pretty simple guy.
that's what I mean. Like, I would have immediately to figure out if it was what it was, if those visions were that vivid, I tried to figure that. It's really interesting that he not the type of person who would think that.
Hmm. I really got the vibe when he was in that vision and all that stuff is happening as when you're playing a video game that runs like a big important cutscene while it still lets you control your character. And you just start running around in totally inappropriate places, jumping in the middle of characters talking and stuff.
But he's not invisible. He's always a person.
Yeah, but nobody really responded to him when he ran out for everyone putting the stuff down and started asking him questions,
Yeah, they did. They were like shouting at him because they were worried he was going to go get himself killed.
No, I'm talking about the guys putting down the shard blades. They wouldn't respond to him except the one. Yeah, the guys up there he was talking to. That was the gameplay part. That other part was a cutscene where they still let him run around and just jump up and down like an idiot in front of the camera.
I hate that.
You hate that? Well,
I hate that, like, you're ruining the mood in the
do you do that?
times.
So you hate it, but you do it. That's what you're saying?
I hate that I'm allowed to do it,
Yeah.
It looks stupid. Anyway, I think we all learned that you should always try one more time to seduce somebody. They might say, yeah.
There are people who
into
will
you.
take that lesson the wrong way, Sheta. That is not
Because I'm
official
talking from
podcast advice.
if you're in a situation where you know someone's into you,
Stop.
Yeah, let's not continue this conversation. This could wind up bad.
okay. No means yes.
No.
There's a difference between fiction and reality.
There's also a difference between the interpersonal dynamics of different people that doesn't apply necessarily to some person you're trying to chat up that's told you to go away like 10 times that you don't know. But Sheta did say that 11th time is the charm.
All right. So this chapter was called A Highway to the Sun. So why do you believe that was chosen for the chapter title?
Is a weird title.
Well, when you really think about it, life is a highway.
No.
You gotta ride it all night long. That's all I got.
I was thinking that this area, Beaverstone Keep, might be on a highway to the sun. Maybe like it's an old way to get there.
I've got nothing. I don't know.
Justin just got past a bunch of easy ones, and now he's getting to a harder one.
Yeah, Justin, where's your clever quips now?
I gave my clever quip. I don't have an actual one though. I like yours, Sheta. This place is
You
the
always say
metaphorical.
that when you have no idea.
Only when I like it. This place is the metaphorical sun of the kingdom of ancient times, or something, and this was the highway to it.
That's not what I said, but yeah. This field where they put up their swords and stuff.
Yeah, it could be all the swords represent the highway, and the sun is the power you grab from them because that's where the true power comes from.
It's nonsense.
That's not nonsense. Storms kind of lead to a sun, so
No, they do not.
What is above a storm? The sun. There you go.
All right. I think at that point, we'll just move on to the last chapter we read today. Chapter 53, Dunny.
Do not
Epigraph.
ask me why this chapter is called Dunny.
Well, I will, because I'm forced to do it every chapter.
It's too much.
When I saw the chapter title. No.
You knew?
This is the chapter where Dunny gets laid.
Yep, that's it.
All right. So, epigraph. He must pick it up. The fallen title. The tower, the crown, and the spear. Subject, a prostitute. Background, unknown.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. That's pretty freaking epic for a prostitute who just died. He must pick up what?
The tower, the crown, and the spear.
So if the spear is the shard blade and the crown is the armor, what's the tower?
Who is the crown the armor?
I don't know because it doesn't work for tower that well. What do you got?
Was it tower and crown and spear? Is it
Yeah.
spear?
Yeah.
Name, leadership. Maybe tower is religion. I'll work on that.
All right. I won't say much, but I will say there is something in this book where it's a tower and a crown that is connected in some way.
Sounds familiar, but I do not remember.
I won't say anything else. I will say that a tower and a crown, there is a connection between those two that we already know. But I will move on. So the chapter begins, and Bridge 4 is making a bridge run at the Parshendi. The Parshendi, they're shooting their arrows, but nobody on the bridge goes down from them. Kaladin, though, he does feel his cheek get hit with an arrow and blood trickle down it. After they set down the bridge, all the men get away, but then Dunny is hit from an arrow from Sadeas's army. He then gets hit from a Parshendi arrow. Kaladin tries to run out and grab him, but Moash, grabs him, tackles him, and holds him back as Dunny gets trampled by Sadeas's cavalry. And Moash tells Kaladin that there was nothing that he could have done. And then Kaladin and the rest of Bridge 4, they get into like a stance and they watch the battle. Even Shen joins in on the stance. Kaladin tries to focus on just watching the battle, seeing how it's going, but he keeps thinking back to Dunny. And then Kaladin walks over to where Bridge 8 are, and they're all just lying on the ground, exhausted now. And he sees a wounded member, and he tells the other members of Bridge 4 to go get his medical supplies. Rock brings up how the other bridge crews have treated them, and Dre says they barely have enough money for bandages for their own men, and they can't take care of the other crews. But Kaladin snaps back and says that nobody cares for them. He won't stand there and watch men die. They have to be better than that. He tells them the lighteyes talk about honor, but he had only known one man of true honor. He was a surgeon that helped everyone, including those who hated him. So they get his supplies, and Kaladin helps the member of Bridge 8, and the other members of Bridge 4, they bringing over other wounded. And Tef asks Kaladin how they're going to bring all these men back. And Kaladin says they'll figure out a way. They can carry a couple more on their top of their bridge. If they need to, they can put some in the water litter that Dabbit and Lopin are carrying. They'll find a way to bring them all back. In Tef's eyes, he begins to wonder, and he kind of mumbles out that it's true. Kaladin asks, "What'd you say?" And Tef says, "It was nothing." Tef asks if Kaladin is still carrying a full pouch of spheres on every run. And Kaladin says, "I am, but we're going to have to start spending them soon." Tef tells him, "No, you're not. Those spheres, you have to keep them. They're good luck." Kaladin says, though, that the spheres that Gavs gives everyone in the bridge, they're all bad, and they go done after just a few days.
I thought that was so funny.
I don't know.
That Kaladin doesn't know. I mean, we don't know for sure yet, but it's funny how he just thinks like these are crappy spheres. They always their light goes away.
Yeah, he has no clue.
Mm-hmm.
But with that clue, though, I wonder if it's just him or is it everyone now?
It's everyone now. I think for
Yeah.
sure. Because when they were doing this run, I'm like, no way, nobody's dying. So it's really interesting that Teft is aware of this and kind of knows about it. And he's like, "Oh no, do not spend those. Jesus Christ."
I really need to know Tef's secret. I need to know now.
Tef points out that this was a good run, and they lost nobody on their approach. When Kaladin brings up Dunny, Tef says that Dunny died after the approach. And Kaladin, Tef points out, Kaladin, you're always running point, and the arrows always seem to miss everyone on the crew. Kaladin asks, Tef, what are you talking about? And Tef's just like, nothing, get back to work. And then leaves.
Nothing. Being
Why
all
is he
like
being
coy.
so silly? He's so silly.
I think he doesn't want to tell Kaladin because maybe perception alters it,
Like a sprint?
Yeah. Maybe it's probably Kaladin's desire to keep them alive that affects it in some way, now that he sees them as an extension of himself.
Oh, interesting.
Kaladin continues to help out some wounded, and he wonders what good is helping all these bridgemen even going to do. And he's beginning to understand the futility that he had seen in his father's eyes. And then Kaladin feels up at his cheek, and he's surprised to find there's no wound there, even though he knows for a fact that he was hit by an arrow. And Moash comes up to Kaladin, and Kaladin tells him that he was right to do what he did, and that he had probably saved Kaladin's life. And Moash puts out his hand and tells him that he was wrong about Kaladin. He's a fool and an instigator, but he is an honest fool. And if he gets them all killed, then it's not going to be on purpose. And that's the end of that chapter.
And that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If there's any way to win over the other bridgemen, it's going to be patching them up potentially. Makes me wonder if they're even going to escape or if this is going to turn into something bigger. And the escape is just, and the escape, like narratively, is just an excuse to get his men all well trained for something.
The fight.
The fight. Mm-hmm. When they all get shard played and take on Sadeas' whole army.
Rangers, yep.
Because in the chasms, right, they come across the ruins of where all those shard plates were left long ago, the hundreds that are missing in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they all put it on and they're all well armed to fight. There's my new theory.
Go Power Ranger.
Mm-hmm. They'll fight it. They'll get it while being attacked by a chasm fiend or hiding from the storm, and it's how they'll survive.
Yeah. I do want to see them all get in plate.
No, that's legitimately what I think will happen now.
Yeah, I always thought the chasm duty was very interesting, in that they have to find some kind of treasure down there.
I have a very hard time believing that the plot is just going to be they make an escape, and then we're going to follow them traveling around as fugitives for an entire book or the rest of this book, just because that just seems too like it wouldn't go anywhere.
Uninteresting?
That depends how it's written. It could be super interesting. I just don't expect it to work out the way it's said, just because it seems like everything's building in a specific direction, and I wonder where that would lead.
It seems to be. It's also interesting because we found out here that some soldiers have noticed Kaladin and his crew. Like, there's a lot of rumors about him, and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's got this potentially messiah role. I think it would be strange to not use it in the story, right? Like, he could wind up taking command of this whole army eventually.
Yeah, depending on who.
The slave to king story, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got to be, because the book was saying, right, that a king must understand everyone has a place in what they're doing, even the lowest person who just carries stuff, right? Long ago in the book. And like
Way of Kings.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact parable, but it was something about understanding that what you're doing as the king is the same as what the guy who just carries boulders or whatever is doing. It's all towards the same purpose. And it's important to understand that you're no better or worse. And Kaladin's definitely getting that kind of story. He's got the perspective of the lowest of the low. So I do fully expect him to rise to the highest of the high, All
right. Anything else from this chapter other two want to go over?
No. We talked about a lot of...
All right. Now to piss off Justin. This chapter was called Dunny. So why do you believe that was chosen for the chapter?
Too soon. Because Dunny is Dunny.
Ugly Justin.
He's Dunny for good.
I'm really sad. Yeah. Dunny in the Deadpool, but he would at least last the escape,
Yeah, you both said that he was guaranteed to die.
100%.
It's not this soon. Poor kid.
Once the bridge run started, my first thought is, okay, who's going to die? Because somebody has to die. I think it would be unrealistic if everyone didn't die, so I was glad when they pointed out the, wow, sure is interesting, no one dies thing.
It gets sad when the lovely singer is killed, you know? He just brought a little beauty to the world and didn't deserve to die.
I think it was also even sadder that the arrow that hit him, that like stopped him and stuff, was a Sadius arrow.
Yeah. It's the exact picture of pointlessness.
So Justin, are you gonna get real sad when next week's chapters, one of them is gonna be called Yasna?
I only worry about that. Actually, I didn't even see the chapter title, so I was very shocked when Dunny died.
You have what? You don't read them?
I've never read chapter titles when I read a book. I always just start the next chapter.
A lot of thought is put into those, Justin.
Yeah, I know. But
Appreciate
if you
them.
didn't tell me there were chapter titles, I wouldn't have even known. I would have just assumed it said like the character's name or a number or something. I don't know what it is. I've just got a blindness towards it. Maybe I
Yeah,
don't
It's
want
really-
potential spoilers, you know?
Do you at
I
least
know what
look
it
at like
is.
the
Nope.
the images? And you should look at those.
Why?
Well, like the little heading image, it pretty much tells you who the point of view character is going to be in for this.
Yeah, but I
And-
figured that out pretty dang quick.
And also, one other thing, I don't have it fully figured out, but I know that the little arches, they're little like faces on those that change all the time. Those faces, they represent different things that happen in the chapter.
Interesting.
I know what some of them mean, but I don't know what all of them mean. And sometimes they mean different things, but those faces in the arches, they change each chapter and they represent different like themes or events or stuff like that happen.
I'm not too worried about it. If those pictures aren't in the audiobook, they can't be that important. Like if the narrator doesn't describe them in detail.
He does.
He
This
does.
face is supposed to be. This represents Dunny, and this one is Rock.
Yeah.
Is sad in this one, and Dunny has X eyes.
Yeah. He has excise.
Well, actually, I know it's not in this book. I can't remember if they do it in the next one, but I know like later they start the art pages. They start just kind of, for the audiobook, just describe what's on the art page. Like, here's a person wearing this standing there or stuff like that.
I really wonder how those kind of things affect the story, because sometimes it's unintentional, but like I said, I guessed that Bazil was doing the epigraphs, you know, because the voice that he's doing is the voice he does for Szeth.
Mm-hmm. That gives it away too much. That's crazy that they
Yeah.
do that.
Oh, I know why you don't read the titles, Justin.
Why?
Because sometimes in shows, like in animes,
Oh,
they're too spoilery. so you
that's
just
true.
skip
I
it.
do naturally look away from anime titles. That's a good reason why.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially
Maybe
with
like,
anime titles.
Goku defeats General Red. Okay, well I know what's happening in this episode.
The worst
Or Top
isn't
Pai
it,
Pai's grand defeat. I think it was something like that, and I'm like, God damn it!
no, the worst is like sometimes when you watch an anime show and like the title is something that doesn't happen until the last minute of the episode.
Yeah,
It's
that
like,
too. Yeah,
like so and so arrives on the battlefield. It's like the
Yep,
very
yep.
end. It's like,
yeah.
you know, you got rid of this big surprising reveal of this person I was not expecting.
I'll just say I'm really glad that I was marathoning One Piece when I watched it, so I didn't see the title of one specific episode. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. So now let's go to theories and predictions. So I'll have a couple questions. So with this Baxel one, why was this woman, this mistress, why was she going through destroying certain pieces of art?
Some people just want to watch.
I think that she's doing it because there's some kind of, maybe the way we perceive the world and history is in some of these famous art pieces, and she's trying to change it so that she can subtly influence society and reality based on the way that our perceptions of things seem to give them shape in this world. Something really strange like that. And she's either targeting specific pieces for specific purposes and for the kinds of important people who see them, who can shape things, or she's just lashing out randomly and she is trying to do this, but it's a kind of pointless thing to do. One of those two.
I think
'cause-
she's part of my mysterious female cabal who was behind everything, like shaping the history of the world. And she's doing something,
Yeah, but doing what?
erasing history,
Okay. So
editing
similar to
history.
mine, but more literal. Is that it?
I wonder if the person in charge of Szeth right now is woman.
Is who?
Is a woman, a mysterious woman in charge of the world. No, doesn't seem like his style.
All right.
Well, that's just a Lethe culture where the women have that power, right? I don't think we've seen anything from other ones saying that. So would it be a worldwide cabal?
Vorinism. So
Who did?
Vorinism's the
Vorin-
religion. So that also goes into like Yakoved.
Yeah, that's everybody.
Well, that's not everybody.
Yeah, what?
Everyone, even the rock
'Cause
people.
I remember that your theory is that there are women who are trying to limit knowledge for some specific reason. I didn't know that it became a worldwide conspiracy in your mind, though.
Well, like I feel like Alethi and Vorinism is like the most powerful religion in Oregon.
I'm very curious to know because every time we touch upon other cultures, I'm very surprised to see how different they are
Yeah, but they're the ones with the shard blades.
that we know of. For all we know, he said there's lots of shard blades that were
Oh,
unaccounted
that's
for.
true.
And
It
he
was
said
like all over the
the people who left them were from all these
true.
different cultures.
And we know that
So
Szeth has one.
yeah, so who knows?
Never mind. But you know what? I don't really think that the people behind it are just limited to one country,
Yeah.
I think they are. I mean, all of these countries have women in there. Not just women.
But,
I don't think that's gonna be true.
but your whole thing on the women is that they shadily keep knowledge to just the one gender.
Yeah. And that's not all across the board, so not true.
All right. The next question. What did Dalinar... You kind of already went into this, but just get a little more clear. What did Dalinar ask for when he went to go see the Night Watcher?
Like Justin's
Some male
theory.
enhancement. No, I'm going to guess that, like I said, I think he chose to save his son, and it cost him the memories of his wife who had died in childbirth. That's my theory.
I always thought that he asked for the memories to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know.
But what's the curse?
Having your eye be open like that to the storm, and the curse of needing to unite people, the mission,
Yeah.
But then why did it take many years for that to really come out?
Wondered. I don't know, but his brother has having the same kind of issue. So wondered if after his brother died, it was
Like
that
they
his
give
curse.
this curse to lots of people? Is that it?
Like you'll get that curse once no one else is carrying it. You'll just be next in line for that curse.
I think that the visions are going to wind up being kind of a bloodline thing. And if Dalinar died, Adolin would start getting them.
I thought that too. I thought it was just because he passed that message to his brother.
Could be.
Almost like a
mimetic virus.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that before, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's just open it up to whatever theories you two want to throw out there.
I think I got all my theories out of my system already.
The Spren stuff was very interesting, and it was nice to get some clues about Bazil is so much more defined than others and stuff. Maybe this info has given us some insight and clue. I was wondering if drawing the angle heads cursed her or cursed how things went down because she drew them. It's kind of like it. If measuring them does that, I wonder if drawing them records them in some way.
Mm-hmm. Defines them more, right? Because it wasn't until she was drawing them that she felt one of their, felt them physically, right?
Yeah.
And if she hadn't been doing that, maybe they wouldn't be able to interact with her, or maybe they wouldn't even exist. Maybe their heads are angular because they're not fully formed yet, right?
Mm-hmm. Freaky. And I do wonder about that recording thing. If the history being recorded is due in some way, does it change when we say it and record it?
That would make it a really interesting theme for Yasna's attempt to understand history in a more true way than it's just written down.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to guess that history probably can't be changed because it seems like it's very object-centered, But maybe the world itself could be changed based on our. Well, no, actually, I take that back. What am I thinking? Because in the stamps, it was remembering its history differently is literally how you got something to change, right? So yeah, I think there's something there. Yeah, like history, our present is built on our understanding of history as a metaphor, right? So
yeah. And they seem to be very obsessed with their history, but then like their history is also very kind of mysterious and has a lot of holes in it. So like I think it's not holes, but like mysteries and stuff. There's a lot of unknowns.
I also kind of wondered. This is half theory, half just wondering. When they left all the shard blades, they didn't have the light in them, and we say that the culture of killing somebody to get it is it came from them all killing each other. But what if that's the way it is supposed to be, and the reason they lost all their light was just because they left it there, and so now everyone who has them, they're not the rightful owners of it because they didn't kill the rightful owner of it, and so
Is it
technically,
like wands in Harry Potter?
oh, I don't know,
It
how
has
does that work?
but the passing of a wand to another person, you have to have defeated the person who owned it first to really
Well,
own the wand.
can you make the wand work without doing that?
It will not work the same. It will.
Oh, it'll what?
It won't. It just won't work like,
Oh,
as
it won't
good.
work at all. Oh, but it can work kind of.
It
If
depends
it
on
can.
the wand temper. No, like it might just spark, but it won't do the spells that you want.
Oh, okay.
You can because it's different with wands. Because if you are a wizard, you have the magic in you. It won't do. It won't work. It won't
Mhm.
cooperate with you. Is the idea.
If that's the case, then that would be close to what I'm saying.
I still think it's more faith based and belief based because you've seen with Kaladin is kind of like that, and with Dalinar too. No, not Dalinar, but I recently read this in another book and I thought it was interesting. It's a theory or a story about how the Fae folk, like fairies, were angels who long ago fought Earth in a holy war. When God called them to come back, they delayed and were locked out of heaven. And I was like, is that what the magical elements in this world are? Since there's a lot of different kinds of fairies, like ranging from a fairy queen and princes down to sprites and toadstools and stuff. And if they live here, maybe they are hidden and stuff like that, just like how and chasm fiends, like the bigger like sprins and stuff like that, and the powerful elements, void bringers. I wonder if they're variations of that kind of idea.
Sheeta, I have to jump back. That thing about the angels locked out of heaven becoming Fae was awesome. What was that from?
It's just an old theory about where fairies came from. That's all.
Oh, that's just an idea people have. It's not from a specific story.
Yeah,
Well, that's awesome.
yeah. hmm Wonder if he was inspired by that idea and stuff, and that the spren and the magic and the heralds and things like that were kind of fairies. And it's interesting that in fairy things, magic can be stolen or used by mortals a lot of the times. I feel like that's what's happening with the shard blades and the shard plate and even fabrials and things like that. Just fairy magic that's being used.
Any other theories or anything you want to throw out there?
I think next time that Dalinar is alone with the queen, they're gonna get together.
That's the theory.
If she gets one more chance to be alone with him, I think that he's gonna actually go for it before she even has a chance to seduce her.
Jesus.
Too much. Can't handle it. I'm so stressed.
I don't think they're ever going to get together. Entire book.
What I wonder is after they get together, will their sons approve or be like, gross?
Oh my God. Are we? I feel like you're reading the wrong book again.
Can he tease us with that and not have anything come of it?
All right. Well, then let's move on to our character of the week.
Mine's Dalinar for having the foresight to realize that he might be going cuckoo bananas. and to know that even if he's not, he was still putting his own people at risk if he doesn't relinquish his role.
Yeah, he is a good leader. I'm also picking Dalinar for almost getting seduced.
That's the reasoning.
It's also the stuff Justin said, but I really like that he was dealing with a lot of stuff, and he was really getting.
All right. And then I'm going to go with Kaladin. I just like him for, stuff's happening. Everyone's telling him, don't worry about the other bridge crew. It's like, and he's just going, fuck it. We're going to help them. They need help. And just doing it.
I forgot to say a theory kind of related to what you said, is that the more good Kaladin is doing, I think the more powerful. I think helping the other bridge crew and trying to be better than guys and people who much, it's going to make him very powerful when he gets a shard blade.
Do you think he will get a shard blade?
I think so. I think I don't know why, but I feel like almost they are drawn to people who can use them. Like when he won the shard blade from that shard bearer, he was very good, like a good fighter, but I almost feel like he won it supernaturally. Something was helping him,
Like this is the ring that acts of its own accord to reach different people.
Like, oh no, this guy deserves the armor, he will win it,
All right. Well, now let's move over to the quotes of the week.
My quote is from Geranid's. I thought these two were super adorable. And so this is, he sat down feeling daunted. I need to research this more. Try it for luminosity, then compare that to my general equation of flame spread. Luminosity is compared to the fire you're drawn to dance around. Asher grimaced. That, my dear, sounds a lot like math. Indeed. Then I shall make you a snack to occupy you while you create new marvels of calculations and genius. He smiled, kissing her forehead. You just found something wonderful, he said more softly. I don't know what it means yet, but it might very well change everything we understand about spread, and maybe even about fabrials. This was just the sweetest thing. I wish, or that's all you can hope for, is someone to make you a snack when you're working, when you're trying complimenting you on being a genius and then making you a snack. And I just thought it was very cute.
You think this is Brandon Sanderson's description of his own life? Is that it?
Yeah, it's just the nicest little couple ever and stuff. And it's weird that they don't outright say that they're a couple, just that they really like each other and all their time together, alone, in each other's company.
Yeah, they keep to the tenets of their religion.
Yeah, they're not breaking any rules. No of. I thought they were very sweet.
Mine is basically what I just said, which was, they both kept to the rules of their stations, despite their seclusion. One did not write the ending of a lifetime of faith with a sloppy last chapter. I think that's just such a funny little idea, because I imagine a lot of people, I mean, not even when you're getting towards the end of life, but just you're getting towards the end of anything, you tend to be like, yeah, I worked hard enough. I did the thing I was supposed to do. So I like taking that when you're talking about religion and faith and being like, you can't act like just because you're towards the end, you can loosen up a bit, even though I think a lot of people do, they don't take things as seriously as they did when they were younger. And you're like, well, then why did you take it seriously in the first place?
That was me, my senior year.
Yeah, I think that's a good example too. School is a great example.
I had a 4.0 for my entire life, and then that year, I don't know what happened.
Like, it actually says a lot about a person if they only adhere to something when it's easier and not when it's super boring to, like they have their seclusion. Nobody would know. Nobody would care, Nobody would even really criticize, but it's a stupid thing to do.
Well, it's a good thing I'm not an ardent, because I would break them.
All right. And then my quote is from the Kaladin chapter. Storm you, Kaladin said, standing and sweeping his hand over the plateau. The bodies of bridgemen lay scattered, ignored. Look at that. Who cares for them? Not Sadeas, not their fellow bridgemen. I doubt even the heralds themselves spare a thought for these. I won't stand there and watch while men die behind me. We have to be better than that. We can't look away like the lighteyes, pretending we don't see. This man is one of us, just like Dunny was. The lighteyes talk about honor. They spout empty claims about their nobility. Well, I've only known one man in my life who was a true man of honor. He was a surgeon who would help anyone, even those who hated him, especially those who hated him. Well, we're going to show Gaz and Sadius, Hishal, and any other sodden fool who cares to watch what he taught me. Now go to work and stop complaining. I just like it. It's pretty much the same reason why I picked Kaladin for my character of the week. You know, you have everyone's telling him we need to just look out for ourselves. We can't worry about the others. And he's just there. It's like, no, we have a chance to save these men. We have to try to save their lives because it's the right thing to do.
It's interesting how much he's taken after his father's teachings and ideals, even though it ended with it ended badly,
All right. And then next, no ambush karaoke this week, because if you expect it every week, then it's not an ambush.
Woo!
We got away this time.
Yep. It will return at some point. I already know which song I'm going to pick next.
Don't do that.
But it's an ambush, so you will not know when it's coming. But now let's go over to some comments that we've gotten throughout some of our episodes. First one is from The Well of Ascension, chapters 1 through 5. This one's from Operati NL, who in the past they had read Elantris and Final Empire gave their thoughts as they went through, so now they're starting Well of Ascension.
Oh,
So
nice.
their comment: started reading Well of Ascension as well. Pretty rough start with the long repeat battle. It felt like an unskippable training mission in a video game. I'm curious where the story goes, though.
Skip. That's funny.
And then Well of Ascension, chapters 6 through 11. Same thing, Operati NL. Okay, the Kandra infiltrating made this book way more fun in one stroke. The way they found out was a bit clunky, though.
Big mystery. I hate it.
What?
That was a really big mystery, and I hated it. It's very
I
scary
liked
to
it.
me. I'm just really scared of intruders and imposters.
Yeah, not hated it like it's bad. Hated it
I
like
don't
it
hate
creeped
it.
around.
It
Yeah.
really scared me every day that it could be any of our friends. I needed to figure that out.
Yeah, that was driving me crazy. I still don't trust any story to this day.
All right. Next from The Way of Kings, chapters 41 through 44, from Ald Chad. Hey, Justin, wanted to correct you. You said Rashon doesn't have layers. Of course he does. You peel back the layer of shit and discover some lovely raw sewage underneath that.
I guess I'm not looking close enough to see the beauty within.
Also, Sheta, while I get where you're coming from with a boar, those are real assholes. That way, the boar spears have wings on sides and are wide pointed. Otherwise, the pig would gladly ram itself up the middle just to disembowel you. White spines are predators, and therefore, I would compare them to a lion more than a boar.
Oh my gosh.
That's fascinating.
Uh-huh.
And then continues, saber-tooths. White spines are crustacean saber-tooths. They are predators, solitary, live in caves. Even the tusks are there.
Ah,
Interesting.
there you go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
Right.
hunt any of those animals.
Well, Rashon shouldn't have been hunting it either.
Yeah.
All right. Next from Koval Petro 28. The artistic kill and kiss that I find very memorable is in Clone Wars, when Ventress kills a clone and gives him a kiss on the cheek. It is so strange and morbid. If you think about for that clone, the first woman's affection he got is from the woman who killed him.
Oh my
That's true.
gosh. That's so.
Man, I hate the redemption of Ventress more than anything ever.
Oh my goodness.
I'm fine with her kind of going away from the Sith, but trying to make her into more of a good guy, I hate that. It was so
I know.
Yeah.
psychotic.
Well, I remember they had the whole, they had the book Dark Disciple, which was about her and Quinlan Voss, because they took like scripts for a whole story arc they had planned for Clone Wars and turned it into a book when Clone Wars got canceled. And now apparently they either retconned it or something because they brought her. I haven't watched Bad Batch, but she shows up in there and maybe some other shorts and stuff.
So that would be season 2. I never saw her in there or in the first.
Well, yeah, it's Or it could be shorts. Like, I've not really watched much of the Disney Plus Star Wars stuff.
A lot of the shorts, I haven't watched them all. Looks like she does.
But I like this.
Yeah, she does. I just haven't watched it. Oh, and they gave her hair. Oh God,
that was in the book too. She has hair on the cover.
That shit. That's so ugly. Though I was pissed when they gave her fucking real eyes in the first when she just came into the show. So
pupils.
Yeah,
you prefer the 2003 massage ventress?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know a fun fact with this this kiss he's talking about, where she kisses and kills a clone trooper. I remember that was edited from the TV broadcast. It's like TV broadcast, they cut out that little segment, but it was included on the DVDs and Blu-rays and everything. And now with streaming, that's the version that's on there.
Not my favorite.
All right. Next from J. Ramirez 34. Hunting white spines would be more like hunting a dragon than a boar.
Do they use any weapons to kill them, or like magical weapons, or is it just a spear?
I assume just a spear.
Because if they're like a dragon and not a boar, would use something that's stronger than a spear.
The only sort of magical weapon we've seen are like shard blades. The other stuff we've seen, you have shard bows, but those are just normal bows, but they just have such a high draw weight that you need to be wearing shard plate in order to use those bows.
Mm.
And other stuff, it's not really weapons. It's just like, span reeds, heat and fabrials, that sort of stuff.
He was an idiot.
Then they continue. Of Alden Milp is one of the chapter titles that seems to have a deeper purpose/meaning. The chapter contrasts how the Lighteyes only think of themselves and are quick to discard the Dark Eyes, but Lirin, who is a Dark Eyes, teaches Kaladin that's not right to discard any life, whether they have light or dark eyes. Given what we know of Kaladin's view on Light Eyes in the current timeline of the book so far, he hasn't taken his father's lesson to heart. He's gone beyond only looking out for his own kind to hating the Light Eyes. This chapter is part of what shapes that hate.
Interesting. That's true. We were just talking about that. And I guess he hasn't gotten over his hate of Light Eyes. He's like fueled by it.
All right, and then Reader Warrior, starting off with his with our talk about movies that were better than they should have been on paper. I throw out Rogue One, a movie dedicated to filling in a plot hole. Seems stupid as I walked in, but then I walked out and it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies.
I'm surprised. Rogue One is one of the few Disney Star Wars I don't hate. And it's got probably the boringest premise, in my opinion. And it's one of the most fucking, like, cynical cash grab, let's just make a Death Star movies ever.
Uh-huh.
I don't love the movie, but I do not hate it at all. Well, maybe I hate one thing. I haven't rewatched it in a while. Maybe CGI Tarkin doesn't hold up very well.
He has like an uncanny valley thing to him.
Yeah.
It's like, it looks good, but it's at that point where it's not perfect, so it still looks kind of odd. But I will disagree with Reader Warrior saying that it's a movie dedicated to filling a plot hole, because it's not really a plot hole. I
agree, but a lot of people see it that way, even though I think they're wrong.
What's the plot hole? That there was a flaw in the Death Star?
Is that the exhaust port will lead all the way down to destroying the thing. But I think that's stupid, because I think that it took them a lot of work in order to find that. It wasn't something like anyone could see. And I think
many Bothans died.
No, that's the second.
No, that's second Death Star.
And the other reason I think it's dumb when people think it's a plot hole is I think the whole point of it is supposed to be that the Empire is so big that they don't think something so small could ever hurt them. And then something so small finds a small little weakness and then exploits it. And that's kind of the theme of the whole story to me. So when people call that a plot hole, I disagree. And them having that be a specific thing that was made by the guy who made it, I actually hate that retcon. So even though I don't hate that movie, I hate the entire basis for why the movie exists personally. I think it's to like appease people who aren't as into Star Wars as they pretend they are, who would complain about something like that.
Also, it's the exhaust port does not lead to the reactor. Hitting the exhaust port, it causes a chain reaction that eventually leads to the reactor. It causes all sorts of other explosions that go there. And even the movie, even Rogue One, they don't fully overwrite that. Because he doesn't say, all right, I made this thing that you have to hit this exact exhaust port. He explains, I create a flaw so that way if something happens, then it will cause a chain reaction. So he
Mhm.
didn't say you go to this spot. They still had to find that part on their own.
Oh, I know. I just still don't like that retcon. I think it's not needed. It's one of those things that like people keep nitpicking over time until it becomes a thing that hipsters complain about, who aren't actually that into it. And
Yeah, who
yeah.
really cares? It doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Like, it doesn't really affect the story.
Yeah. I wouldn't have made the whole
Whatsoever,
plot in or fringing on that. Though I do like the
Well,
part about the team that gets the plan. That I really like the story of the team that dies to get the plans to the rebellion. I like that part a lot.
well,
Yeah.
I just played Dark Forces. We're literally the first level of the game. I'm playing as Kyle Katarn, and I find the Death Star plans.
Oh, so they didn't do that. That was you. Okay.
It was Kyle Katarn. Yep, that's the old EU.
Be like, I will
storyline is
die
you
on the
get-
hill that it was Kyle Katar.
Well, I guess he gets built up in like later games and even in like later books and stuff. So he's a popular character, but that's literally the first mission of the first game is you get the Death Star plans. All right, continuing on. Ooh, what about the Recess movie?
I'm gonna be
The Lego
honest.
m-
I did not like the Recess movie that much. I really liked the show. I watched it recently, and then watching the movie, I didn't hate it, but I didn't think it was as good as the show.
The Lego movie is spectacular. I think part of its success is because they kept ad-libbing things throughout the entire process. So much of it wasn't even scripted.
Well, that's the problem with Spider-Verse now, and why it's still not out. Keep changing things. Those guys.
In Chapter 41, it may not be a good thing that Lyra and Kep were shown alive, but it was the honorable thing.
Yeah, well, honor's a good way to get your family killed. Sometimes that's all I'm gonna say.
Quote. Remember, is it from Song of Ice and Fire? Something about how honor will kill you.
Well, I believe that Tyrion thinks honor is for fools or something, and not honor, something like that, and that's why he takes the blanket, even though. What is it I'm mixing up?
There's a let me look up the exact line. There's a line that from Jorah Mormont.
Like, it was a kind of a war line, like about
All right, here we go.
height.
Yeah, because I remember Jorah Mormont. Rhaegar fought valiantly. Rhaegar fought nobly.
Hmm.
Rhaegar fought honorably. And Rhaegar died.
Yeah, I always think of that when it comes to honor and in fights.
With how much they try to make Rhaegar seem like a good guy in that book.
Morally, I think he did the right thing. Rationally, I would have some questions about the choices he made. Those are two very different things sometimes, sadly.
Well, I will also say that I don't think that that Rhaegar did the moral thing either. He left his wife and 2 children for an underage girl.
Some people would call that the only true honor.
Love is love.
Love is love.
And then got that underage girl's family killed and caused a war. And all right, well, we'll go on. Let's go on with this. All right, back to Reader Warrior's comment. Racists, or ISIS, and bigots should get the Yasna treatment.
What's the Yasna treatment? Poison bread?
I was going to say probably killing a bunch of people with a soulcaster.
Depends who defines those words. That's always my worry with just kill 'em all attitudes.
And that elephants have tusks. That doesn't make them pigs.
Now that you say it, though, you do got to admit they kind of do look like pigs.
They are pigs with a longer nose.
Now we're going to start talking about like pumas.
Like, technical animal category.
Let's just agree to keep zoology out of this podcast.
Well, I was just trying to bring up a red versus blue joke, but okay.
No.
It's okay. That was only episode 2 of the show. All right. On to chapter 42. Isn't Shallan thinking about potentially having Capsule take the fall, though?
Now she should have.
And
She really should have. That would have been such a good thing to do in retrospect.
it's like,
Huh?
and asking, how was Capsule suspicious for asking her, commenting he was going to ask her to aid in his goals, but she's planning on doing the same thing?
Because she's suspicious. That makes him more suspicious. If he asked me that and I really cared about my family, that's just manna from heaven right there.
Then also, the best, from a quote, or the best liars are those who tell the truth most of the time. Vin Paranoia Venture. Chapter 43. These words are accepted. Kaladin, wretched blessed. Chapter 44. Sheta's ship line is social incest.
Yeah, well, the social part didn't hurt some of our previous ships. I don't know why it would betray or stop her now.
And it continues. There wasn't any love in the Vin and Sane relationship.
Love is hard to define. That's all.
This is the reason many Cosmere fans consider Kaladin's father to be one of the worst, even compared to Straff and Iadon.
Whoa, I wouldn't go that far. Jesus.
Interesting. So I'm not the only one who thinks like that. Good to know.
Kaladin's father is very interesting because he taught his son an incorrect lesson, which is that you cannot save by killing. And it got stuck in his head for his whole life. However, he also taught him a great lesson, which was the exact same lesson, you know? So I'm really curious to see how Kaladin, at the end of this book, what his morality is going to be. I'm very curious. However, Straff, come now.
I think a lot of it comes down to it's a fictional story, and Liren is kind of playing like the pacifist person. And in fiction, you just want to read them go beat the bad guys and stuff. So a lot of times pacifists, they get a real negative connotation by fans.
I don't dislike him for his pacifism. I dislike him for not leaving the village and keeping his family in jeopardy.
Well, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying I've seen a lot of people dislike him because he's more of a pacifist, and that always gets shit on in fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And then from the theory segment, Sigil knew the full oath. Is he a herald too?
I think so.
Because that was one where Sheta was saying that Teft is probably a herald because he knew the full like radiant oath, but Sigil also knew it.
Pixel is a storyteller. He has to learn these things. Theft seems like a normal guy and not someone I would expect to know. Like Sigil was very poetic and more thoughtful about his like broy type, not expecting poetry and
colors. That's the other planet. We deal with storms and light here, and lots of prejudice.
I don't think I've seen any more prejudice than I saw with the fucking ska.
Yeah, pretty hard.
I guess, yeah, like straight up, like just killing and stuff, that was pretty bad.
And seeing them as a literal slave class. At least here they're just seen as lower class, when that's the improvement.
Yeah.
Well, Elantris was just, get him out of our sight. We don't even want to look at him. Throw him in the city, walled city, and leave him
different. There. They were like
that's
zombies.
Different. They were sick. Yeah, they were like lepers.
They were like lepers.
Different.
That is different.
Uh-huh. This was like an entire part of your population. You can just kill them all and throw them in a fountain, and it's fine.
Scars. And then the terrorists. It's like, all right, and then we'll use these people, and we'll specifically breed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine for their powers and their cuteness.
All of Sheta's theories are well organized and logical. This must mark the beginning of a desolation.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was feeling. You're scaring me, Sheta.
You told me to be more organized.
Well, I guess we know that everyone is now doomed.
And then from the comment segment, Zane's non-flirting has a name, stalking, and a second, murder.
Love is love.
The heart wants what it wants.
Who am I to get in the way of two young kids in love, huh? What kind of monster would I be?
Just let them explore their feelings.
And to be fair, stalking in fiction is always a weird thing. Because quite literally, like every single rom-com story includes stalking at some point in the story, and it's treated as normal.
What are you talking about specifically?
Like literally, like every rom-com like manga I've ever read, there's a stalking scene at some point. Kaguya-sama, stalking. Rent-Girlfriend, stalking. Quintessential Quintuplet, stalking. Nisekoi, stalking. There's always a scene.
It's cuter when they're
usually
Japanese or anime characters.
Well, it's usually used for some sort of comedic relief. I'm just saying, stalking in a story, it's always weird because it's...
I mean, who hasn't stalked buddy?
I mean, I haven't read Twilight, but wasn't there stalking with the werewolf guy?
No.
Oh, okay.
There was other very questionable stuff, not stalking.
Edward stalked Bella.
Yeah, but
He would
he
watch
saved
her.
her from some rapists, so
Not just that, like he would watch her when she slept.
yeah, and that's part of how he was able to save her. So stalking is good if you're superpowered.
Yeah, if you really love her, it's okay.
If you really love her, it's okay. Yep. Don't take no for an answer. If you love her, it's okay to follow her. This is Sheta today.
Okay. All right. Let's just go one more comment from The Way of Kings, chapters 45 to 47, from J. Ramirez 34. I don't know if this was intentional, but mar is a Spanish term for sea/ocean. So that part of Shadesmar makes sense if it's an ocean of beads. But then it should be Beadsmar.
Interesting. I thought that was a good name too for that place. Maybe it's made out of shade. The beads are made of shade and shadows.
Or the beads encroach on the sea of shadows.
No, that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense?
All right, then next part of their comment. No Adolin/Kaladin ship. How would Sadeas react if he saw a secret lover slumming with one of his bridge boys?
Don't encourage her. No.
I like their interaction a lot. I hope they meet again.
I could come to your camp and repay you. I have my eye on another. He turns back to the bridgeman.
The bridge boy, Justin.
The bridge boy. A bridge boy, send a message, and when you're done, why don't you return to my camp? I've got another kind of bridge for you to carry.
And then the last part of their comment. Wit would absolutely be Fozzie Bear.
Yep, I dig it.
What is this from? Or what was this
Our
comment
Muppet
about?
version of this movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I do have to say, I did think I should have had Adolin say, I have another type of arrow you can take.
I tried to move on.
I had to say that because that was the correct line.
And I like how we talked about that whole like Muppet Stormlight, and then literally a couple days ago, Brandon Sanderson on his like podcast he does with Dan Wells, they talked about like a Muppet Mistborn movie.
Are you saying Brandon
That's
Sanderson
crazy.
listens to this podcast? It's official?
He listens to Cosmere Chronicles.
Yep.
It's official.
It's literally the only one he listens to.
But I thought it was fun because they were discussing like, well, if we did this, like, who would be the... They didn't talk about who the Muppets would be. They were just trying to discuss who would be the one human in the movie. I won't spoil what they said, but if you want to listen, go listen to last intentionally blank episode from a couple weeks ago at this point.
We come up with our human.
All right, so yeah, there's a question. Who should be the one human in a Mistborn movie?
Ham.
Huh?
Ham.
Ham? No, it's got to be Vin. And it's got to be played by, like, Selma Hayek.
What?
Selma Hayek?
That doesn't make any sense.
I think she's a bit old for the role.
No, it'd be Kelsey Aaron. Imagine how brutal it would be when they have that actor die in front of all the Muppets.
And you have the little Vin puppet being
Yeah.
like, no, Kelsey.
No.
Played by Miss Piggy would be like,
No,
Ew.
I like the Lord Ruler. You have the entire movie of all Muppets, and then out of this carriage just comes out the Rock, and he just kills Kermit or
the
whoever.
fucking epic, man.
Well, would Kermit be Kelsier, or would Kermit be Ellen? That way you could have him hook up with Vin.
Oh,
Miss
you're
Piggy.
right. He would be Ellen.
I don't want Miss Piggy to be Vin.
Then Gonzo is the Kelsier.
So
Fucking
ugly.
badass movie, man.
Oh, Super Grover.
You and your mixing up Muppets and Sesame Street Muppets drives me nuts, Sheta.
I have a very
They're
bad,
two
low.
separate brands.
They're all puppets.
No.
And I've seen mostly Sesame Street and maybe 2 Muppet movies.
They're not. They're two different brands. They don't cross over often. That's why when you do have a little cameo, it's really great. Like
You know
in the
what?
Big
I
Bird
probably
movie.
watched. Yeah, I watched the Big Bird movie. Only so I mind they are living together,
Yes, but they live on Sesame Street.
but it's still in the same world. They could
That's
hang
not
out.
how it works. There's not a strict continuity to the Muppets.
All right. Enough Muppet talk. Let's just go on. By looking forward to next week's episode. So next week we'll be reading 3 chapters: chapters 54 through 56.
Wait, that's only 2 chapters, Joe.
That is not
54
2
through
chapters.
56.
Sheta.
4, 5, 6, 2 chapters.
Okay. With that logic, I can't argue.
All right. Yep. So that's our show this week. As I said, 54 through 56 for next week. And after you read those, while you wait, maybe also go online, watch some music videos from the 80s and 90s.
It's actually really fun to do.
Some good time. Or
Really bizarre ones.
if you have TV, you could always throw on MTV Classic. They're always playing music videos. But yeah, look up some music videos. Watch them.
Britney Spears' entire discography music video, the best.
I said 80s and 90s. You're only going to get like 4 Britney Spears music videos in that time period.
No, just go and look specifically up Britney Spears ones on YouTube.
I have no
Yeah.
clever comment to add.
Justin's edition will say everyone just go watch Let's Dance by David Bowie.
And over on repeat for 10 hours.
Yep. All right. So that's your mission, everyone. Let's go all out, have fun. We'll see you next week. All right. Bye.
Bye.